Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Kimberly Tomchek Carlson, and it is my honor to serve as your Minister of Religious Education. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you today and all that your heart longs to set down. I welcome you to our worship service by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Today is a special service for our congregation. It is Youth Worship Service Sunday. Each spring, our youth create and choose all the elements of worship and are empowered to share their voices and vision with the congregation. We begin today with our opening words, read by Grace Hopkins, followed by our chalice lighting and then Spirit of Life. Let us begin.
Hi, my name's Grace, and I'm in my kitchen, so that's cool. And I'll be doing the opening reading, which is Past Tense by Sam Taylor. In the Great Depression of 2047, a time of sorrow rivaled only by the global unification wars of spring 2029 to 2023, in the Merlona plague of 2104, in the year of the forest die-off, after the atmospheric hue reduction, in the year of the last rebellion, after the rise of the freeze gun, after the Earth Liberation Army went into hiding, after sorrow was renamed, after the Ethiopians became immune to cancer, someone was born, and someone loved in their names, like grass, where the river sleeps and the sky's tears were a private thing, touched only in solitude. And 4 out of 5 full bellies believed, and 9 out of 10 hungry mouths agreed, and the ancient books that had never made any sense made no sense again, and at last ceased to be printed. And all the words fell out of the Bibles in the night. The pages were filled with a rain of leaves, and the words that were left could not be read. And so they acquired an air of sanctity which they had never, in truth, possessed in the daylight in the presence of men. And someone in a field found an old car from the year black with beetles, eaten like lace, and the sky fell into it, a private thing. And everyone had a kitchen or a fold-out bed and a chair beside an open window. And no one knew the hour, and no one knew the day. But behind locked doors and curtains they danced, to the music pumped through the walls that no one could escape, and to that other music that rose off the blood that could not be silenced. And so on and so forth, and the seed of hope still had not vanished from the face of the childless earth.
Come unto me. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul. I am a young adult and youth here at the UU Society of Milwaukee, and today I will be presenting the testimonial. And for my testimonial, I'm going to be relaying a story about how I've experienced the church so far, like what my experience has been. The first point at which I truly started gaining experience, knowledge, and actually started like super benefiting from being at the church, which is, I think, the first through third grade. First through third grade, I I went to church with my mom a lot. Basically every Sunday I was with her. Go to we would go on Sunday to church, usually the earlier program, because we like to get things done during the day. And I'd go into my group, and I just have a lot of fun. First through third grade, I was a little prankster. I was a jokester. I like to mess around, so I'd just be, I was boisterous, so I like to just mess around, joke around a lot. And the leaders had to keep me in check. At school, you can, you're there for learning, right? You can hang out with your friends, but you're there for learning. So when you're at church, you can really express yourself and your true emotions. And that was a great place for me to just hang out with people my age and truly just feel free to do what I felt, what I needed to do, and it was good. It was nice. I just had a lot of fun, and it was truly really nice experience. Now, going into fourth through sixth grade, that was a different experience completely because I was arrogant back then. I saw church as kind of a waste of time in my mind. I was like, oh, why do we have to do this? It's Sunday. I should just be able to laze around, sleep in. Yeah, and I would generally, I'd disagree with my mom. I'd be like, oh, do we have to go? When we were meeting, I wouldn't listen too much, and I wouldn't be as great of a participating person because I just saw it as a waste of time, which was quite unfortunate. But um, yeah, that's how I acted during there. But then looking back on it, through when I was in seventh, eighth grade, and like OWL and stuff, I look back on it and I was like, wow, this was actually a great experience for me, or it gave me something that I wouldn't have had otherwise, because if I hadn't have gone to church, I would have just sat around all day. Even though you're not paying a bunch of attention, you're being arrogant, you're not listening, you're still in a place with people your age, you're still doing something, right? So it's important that I was there, because if I hadn't gone, I would have just, I would have lazed around all day. Wouldn't have gotten anything done. Wouldn't have gained any knowledge, even if I hadn't listened. And so fourth through sixth grade, it was still such a great experience. Owl is it's the knowledge you gain there. I won't speak too much on it, but the knowledge you gain there is so much. It's exponentially better than anything you will learn anywhere else. You gain so much knowledge about the world. It really is such a truly good experience. Um, it's just so helpful. Now, youth group, which I am presently in, it's amazing. Being in youth group is such a good place for young adults, for teenagers, because they can open up. They can feel free to be themselves without without judgment from anyone, because it's a place with no judgment. Of course, you have to be respectful of other people. You can't just go swearing all the time, but it's a place where you can feel free to express what you have deep down and share with others what you truly feel is what you're truly feeling in your heart. And it's a very good experience for us. The conversations you get there, the knowledge you gain on world happenings, and because if you don't watch the news every day, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about what's going on in the world, and how different things are affecting us. uh and it's just so good, and you make bonds with people too, right? These are all people your age. there's all sorts of uh, connections you can make with people, and it's such a good experience for kids so far, as I've learned. And I mean, I've got 3 more years, so I expect that to be great. Now, this is where I am going to close off the testimonial. I truly hope that myself and everyone else in the community can continue to support our church, because this experience for not only kids, young adults, teenagers, um, but also the grown-ups, every adult there at our church. It's such a great experience for everyone that you really can't find anywhere else. So I implore all of us, myself and everyone else here, to continue to support the church so we can carry on gaining experience, knowledge, and connections that you would find nowhere else. Thank you for listening.
Yo, I had the car before I walk, and now I do the 1-2 step. I heard the spirit and it said the groove, yeah. That's why I do my own shuffle, tapping feet, clapping hands. If you could talk, you could sing. If you could walk, you could dance. Spirit told me bless the track with the vocals, and I come around your city rocking with the locals. Fading out, got my eyes closed. I think the Lord talking to me, gotta get up all in my zone. Candle gazing after doing kundalini. I wrote it in my journal, trying to find the true meaning. It ain't gonna happen overnight, I really ain't stressing. I'ma get the blessing. I don't need Google directions, I just follow spirit. I think I start to hear it. The elders talk about alignment, I just start to get near it. Walk along the path, with or without a crew. When the spirit says do, I make it do what it do. Come on.
Do when the spirit says do.
Oh yeah.
You got to do.
Y'all know what it's like when the spirit says do. I mean, you just gotta do what it do. I know right now with some spirit talking to you inside and it's telling you to do something, and whatever that is, go with it. Alright? Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says do, and you know what? I'ma do what I do. You go ahead and do what you do, and that's how we gonna do what we do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, baby.
Spirit says do.
Hey, 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 hey. Oh yeah.
Today, I will be reading you a story called Harold and the Purple Crayon. One evening, after thinking it over for some time, Harold decided to go for a walk in the moonlight. There wasn't any moon, and Harold needed a moon for a walk in the moonlight, and he needed something to walk on. He made a long, straight path so he wouldn't get lost, and he set off on his walk, taking his big purple crayon with him. But he didn't seem to be getting anywhere on the long, straight path, so he left the path for a shortcut across a field, and the moon went with him. The shortcut led right to where Harold thought a forest ought to be. He didn't want to get lost in the woods, so he made a very small forest with just one tree in it. It turned out to be an apple tree. The apples would be very tasty, Harold thought, when they got red. So he put a frightening dragon under the tree to guard the apples. It was a terribly frightening dragon. It even frightened Harold. He backed away. His hand holding the purple crayon shook. Suddenly, he realized what was happening. But by then, Harold was over his head in an ocean. He came up thinking fast, and in no time he was climbing aboard a trim little boat. He quickly set sail, and the moon sailed along with him. After he set sail long enough, Harold made land without much trouble. He stepped ashore on the beach, wondering where he was. The sandy beach reminded Harold of picnics, and the thought of picnics made him hungry, so he laid out a nice, simple picnic lunch. There was nothing but pie. There were all 9 kinds of pie that Harold liked best. When Harold finished his picnic, there was quite a lot left. He hated to see so much delicious pie go to waste. So Harold left a very hungry moose and a deserving porcupine to finish it up, and off he went, looking for a hill to climb to see where he was. Harold knew that the higher up he went, the farther he could see, so he decided to make the hill into a mountain. If he went high enough, he thought, he could see the window of his bedroom. He was tired, and he felt he ought to be getting to bed. He hoped he could see his bedroom window from the top of the mountain. But as he looked down over the other side, he slipped, and there wasn't any side on the other side of the mountain. He was falling in thin air. But luckily, he kept his wits and his purple crayon. He made a balloon and he grabbed onto it. And he made a basket under the big balloon, big enough to stand in. He had fine enough view from the balloon, but he couldn't see his window. He couldn't even see a house. So he made a house with windows, and he landed the balloon on the grass in the front yard. None of the windows was his window. He tried to think where his window ought to be. He made some more windows. He made a big building full of windows. He made lots of buildings full of windows. He made a whole city full of windows. But none of the windows were his window. He couldn't think where it might be. He decided to ask a policeman. The policeman pointed the way Harold was going anyway, but Harold thanked him. And he walked along with the moon, wishing he was in his room and in bed. Then, suddenly, Harold remembered. He remembered where his bedroom window was when there was a moon. It was always right around the moon. And then Harold made his bed. He got in it and he drew up the covers. The purple crayon dropped to the floor and Harold dropped off to sleep. Thank you for listening.
Harold and the Purple Crayon, a classic story chosen by our youth. In this story, Harold is on a solitary adventure, continually creating his path forward through the world. Sometimes it seems that he's not getting anywhere, yet he bravely wields his purple crayon and draws a way forward, one line at a time. It has been 1 year since we have gathered together, and the pandemic has changed our paths forward. Like Harold, sometimes we've been scared, eaten too much pie, felt lost, and even received directions we didn't find that helpful. We have doggedly progressed like Harold, hoped for the best and created new ways to move forward through the world. In place of a purple crayon, we have used our wits, resilience, and optimism to find our way. Our youth chose this story because today some of them will share with you how they have found their way forward. I've been worried about them, and I know many of you have too. Wondering what a year of isolation must be like at a time in life where you are rapidly growing into your personhood. Adolescence is already a time of immense transition, a time of becoming more independent and autonomous through new connections in the world, at school, through work, new responsibilities, and new kinds of relationships. How will this year of isolation shape our young people's lives and future? The youth advisors, Deb Salas and I, created some reflection questions to help the youth share how they are striving and thriving. There are many voices missing, many stories missing. A year of isolation has taken a toll on our youth community. Many of our youth had planned to go with us on the youth service trip, or the UU Boston Heritage trip, or the Youth Leadership School. All were, of course, canceled, like so many of their plans and options and hopes. And it's hard. It's hard to reflect on those losses, hard to be vulnerable, especially when we were all so very tender still. but I've had the privilege to speak with many of our youth, so I know that there are many stories the youth chose not to share. Stories about high school starting without ever stepping into the building of high school, or virtual school failures and successes, breaking up with friends, family members struggling with COVID, and losing grandparents. Instead, our youth chose to tell you their stories of striving and thriving today. And because it's a tradition, they will also be sharing a remembrance of their youth service trip in 2019. I am proud of these young people, and I know you will be too.
Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark.
My name is Paul, and I'm a senior at Wauwatosa East High School. And I went on the 2019 mission trip to Battle Creek, Michigan, where I had worked with Habitat for Humanity. And some of the work that I did was to help put together ramp frames, clean up a condemned house, and finish up a different house so that it could be sold. And there was also a beach day in between. The highlight of my time at Battle Creek would definitely have been getting to know the kids and counselors better, as we had to spend a whole week together. No phones were allowed on the trip, and the radio was a big ready no, because we had the task of taking 2 tracks for our trip, with the idea that it was a secret who picked which one. And I managed to keep my secret for a whole hour before saying it immediately, and just sitting on the last day on the side because I lost. But I still had fun, and I was totally planning on returning the next year, but for some reason it got canceled. But I totally would recommend that other people do it, because I can't really think of a bad second that I spent with my fellow youth.
Hello, my name is Gus Pointer Mace. I'm the co-chair of the Youth Steering Committee, and during this time, I've really found what sustained me is being able to make things physically with my hands instead of just consuming passively or making things online, for instance, for school, writing an essay. And so becoming more adept at sewing and knitting and crafts like that, and also connecting those to my interest in history. For instance, I'm working on a project right now that's a reconstruction of Regency dress, And so this time what's really sustained me is being able to have that connection to something that I've made materially and grounding myself in that way. And I found that connects to virtual schooling because one of the things that I have actually acclimated to really well with virtual learning is my ability to be doing something with my hands while I'm working on school or listening to a lecture or something. Because, for instance, if it's school, I can't have a giant circle skirt that I'm just hemming as I listen to what my teacher is doing. But that ability to do multiple things at once has helped me focus and learn a lot better in this time than I would have in a normal school environment, as well as the ability to be able to control my environment in a way where, like, I don't have to go through an extremely loud hall or sit in the cafeteria. I can just, like, be here and listen to my music and have a quiet environment where I can actually learn. And that, although a lot of elements of virtual learning have been very difficult, for instance, I can count from where I'm sitting about like 3 or 4 different methods by which I keep track of what I have to do for school. I've got Post-its that I roll up and put in this jar. I have a calendar. I have a planner, because the physical reminders of what's due and the accountability is more difficult to keep track of. So I have to have a bunch of different fail safes so that the Rube Goldberg machine that is me trying to keep myself on task has a couple different fail safes, and I don't go through my day not knowing what I need to do. But I find that the amount of different keeping track of what I'm doing is actually, I feel like it will prepare me more for the open-ended environment of college. Yeah.
Filled with fear, laden with sadness, chaos and madness grow around us. Still we're here, risking and daring, endlessly caring. Hope has found us. Peace surrounds us. We were called for just such a time as this. For this time we were made. We give all our love and compassion, trust into action, even afraid. We were called for just such a time as this, and we make this vow. We'll bring all our gifts to the table, do what we're able somehow, for we were called for just such a time as now. Touched by grief, stressed and exhausted, counting the losses, sorrow hounds us. Still again we are invited, gently reminded, faith has found us. Grace astounds us. We were called for just such a time as this. For this time we were made. We give all our love and compassion, trust into action, even afraid. We were called for just such a time as this, and we make this vow. We'll bring all our gifts to the table, do what we're able somehow, for we were called for just such a time as now. We were called for just such a time as now.
Hello, I'm Paul. I'm a youth here at the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee, and today I'll be answering a few questions. One of the questions, what has been most challenging during this past year? Well, year and a little bit up until now, but I think the most challenging thing has been not being able to make human connection, physical, like physically talking to people all the time, because I'm an extrovert and I run off of human connection. So when I can't do that, it gets a little depressing, and unfortunately, that's how it's been for me, quite a lot actually. But there has been some good things that have come out of it. One of them being that I've made a lot more connections on social media, and I've made a lot of friends through there, and that's nice. So it's not all bad in that perspective. Sometimes the challenges in life can broaden new paths. The second question that I'll be answering is, what has the pandemic taught me? Well, if anything, the pandemic has definitely taught me that you really can't ever be too careful. And although that is a very controversial opinion, I will say that, in my opinion, I believe it to be true. Because with the example of this virus, it will take any opportunity it can to spread, and we have to take huge measures like having a nationwide quarantine, and then social distancing and masks and everything, and it's pretty crazy. But those precautions have needed to be taken because of the fact that the virus will take any opportunity it can to spread, and that's why I believe that you really can't be too careful, because with this and anything else, if you allow an opportunity for something bad to present itself, it will take that opportunity. Anyways, moving on to the third question, we have my faith and values helped me? And yes, to be honest, yes. I've learned that even through tough times, you can still use the values that you give yourself, or that you relate to, in a normal way. You can still experience them and help others experience them, and use them to help those around you, feel better, and just in general help them out. Because one of my top values in life is treating people with respect, and I believe that's one for most people. But I've really learned that even though like it can get super stressful with the pandemic and other things that may be causing you stress, you may lash out at people, but or just offend them in some way, and then it brings you back to the realization that even though there's stress, it's still important to respect people, and that's definitely how one of my values has helped me. I thank you for listening to my little chat here, and see you when the virus is over.
Hi, I'm Max, and one of the ways I've thrived during this pandemic is that I've actually learned how to love learning. Virtual schooling is sometimes kind of stressful, and I found that one of the ways to make it a lot more enjoyable is to actually put a lot of effort into the things that I'm doing and the things that I am learning. So now I would like to show you some of the things I have been working on this year. Here is a drawing I made to show the parts of a sound wave. Here is some geometry work I did for my ecosystem study. Here is something I do for math seminar, which we have each week on Thursdays. Here's something I did for my infographic on representation in the Senate. As you can see, there's quite a bit of data here, and that's because I found the population of each state and how much of that population the senators each represented in the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett. I actually found that more people were represented by the senators who voted nay than the senators who voted yay. This year in school, I got to take part in a book group for the book called Stamped. And basically, in reading the book Stamped, we got to learn about the history of racism in more of a kid's lens, and we got to learn a lot more about how to be an anti-racist. After finishing the book Stamped, our teachers wanted us to do a deep dive into something we learned in the book. And so me and a few of my friends decided to actually make a podcast about race representation in the media. A few months ago, I got to do a research project on whatever topic I wanted. I chose to pick 3 examples on how religion and culture have affected each other in society. The 3 religions that I chose were Judaism and the commercialization of Hanukkah, Romanian Orthodox and the effects that communism had, and Hinduism and the caste system. Fun fact, I actually chose Romanian Orthodox because my friend and his parents are Romanian, and his parents actually grew up in Romania when it was under communist rule, and their parents, so my friend's grandparents, were actually priests in the Orthodox Church. So I actually got to interview them, and it turned out pretty interesting, I'd say. If you would like to see my full project, go to sites.google.com/view/religionandculture/home. All in all, learning has been such a great way for me to deal with quarantine. And I really hope that some of you learn, yes, I know, I am hilarious, to love to learn just like me, and you can dive into some of your interests and maybe enjoy quarantine just a tad bit more.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
To be prepared. I know I'm scared to be prepared. I know I'm scared, and I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
To be
Change is coming.
I
What do we need to
know
imagine?
'cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know, yes, from brokenness there's hope, and I know
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming.
What do we need to imagine?
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
'Cause I know
Change is coming.
I know
What do we
from
need to
brokenness there's hope.
imagine?
I know
Change is coming.
Thank you all so much for your generosity. Pledges are the core of our church's spiritual practice of generosity, and we are also grateful for the additional gifts to support our ministry, and thank the folks out there who are appreciating this online ministry and supporting it by texting 73256 with the message "Give to UU," or giving on our website. Your gifts help us to continue to provide this ministry. We also share the plate with an organization each Sunday. This Sunday, we are sharing it with the Milwaukee Center for Children and Youth. The Milwaukee Center for Children and Youth's mission is to end suffering of abused children in Milwaukee County. They do this through comprehensive advocacy, education, and supportive services that heal trauma, build resilience, and nurture the ability to thrive, and create a path toward eradicating the epidemic of child abuse in our community. To help them provide these essential services, please go to mccy.org and look for the Donate tab. You can see all these options on your screen now, and they will live on in the YouTube comment section of this video after worship is over. Thank you so much for giving right now or when you come back later. Your support keeps us and our community partners going. So thank you.
Our closing reading today is The Orange by Wendy Cope. At lunchtime, I bought a huge orange. The size of it made us all laugh. I peeled it and shared it with Robert and Dave. They got quarters and I had a half. And that orange, it made me so happy, as ordinary things often do. Just lately, the shopping, a walk in the park. This is peace and contentment. It's new. The rest of the day was quite easy. I did all the jobs on my list, and enjoyed them and had some time over. I love you. I'm glad I exist.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there.